Have you been scared off from buying a house because rates have been frighteningly high? The Sharp Mortgage Team in Winston-Salem can help make it feel far less spooky. There are many programs available now that can keep your mortgage payment from making you want to scream. You will dread it if you don't call for more information today because Halloween is right around the corner. With the Sharp Mortgage Team, there are no tricks, and they will treat you and the zombies you love like family.
Welcome back to Twin City Talk. Today we're here with Brittany and Phil from Reynolda House and Gardens. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you for having us.
So tell us a little bit about, what people can expect when they visit the house and gardens.
Sure. If you're not familiar with Reynolda, it's a historic estate of R.J. Reynolds and his wife Catherine Reynolds of R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. It was completed in 1917, and what you can expect now is a museum inside of their historic home showcasing American art that was founded by their granddaughter, Barbara Babcock Millhouse, in 1964, I believe. And just outside of that historic home are the original formal gardens. You can enjoy walking trails across the estate, so almost 2 miles of walking trails. If you come this fall, you'll see a newly restored conservatory. And so there's a very full experience. Also, right outside of the house and gardens is Reynolda Village, so all of those original support buildings for the estate, barn and silo and post office and school buildings now comprise Reynolda Village, where you can shop and dine and get your hair done and go to the spa, whatever you might need to do for the afternoon.
So I don't want to say favorite. That seems to make people nervous, but where's a room you like to go inside Reynolda House that just, it's really cool?
Ooh, a room. My favorite room is the lake porch, which I guess isn't really a room. It's a porch that's now enclosed, so it's kind of a room. And there's not a piece of art necessarily in that room, but I love the view. It looks over where Lake Catherine would have been. It's a space where you can sit in the museum and sort of unwind. You can read in that space. And so while you're touring the museum, it's a nice place to pause and take a break. For me, it's a nice place if I'd want to get out of my office and work there, I'll work there.
What about you?
The pool comes to mind. I mean, it's an art museum, like Brittany said, but it's a house, too. And we try to make it feel like a place you might be a guest and chill. So the furniture is still there. We can't really plop down on it, but it's all there. And sort of the idea of looking at art while you're comfortable, your mind can go different places. So one way that it feels like a home is the pool still has its water, which for all these old homes, that's really rare. Usually they've emptied them out because of maintenance and so forth, and visitors falling in and drowning. But we keep it full, and kids swim in summer camps, and members have days where they can swim. So it's an amazing space because it's covered in glass and it kind of glows. So that's also not a space with art. We both named places about art, but I just love the pool.
We do love the museum.
Yes, we do.
So my wife, every Sunday, as long as it's not raining, and even sometimes if it is, her routine is she goes to take care of her elderly mother, and then she goes and she looks for mushrooms and for butterflies and everything in the Reynolda Gardens, but it's not necessarily the gardens part. She does the trails, she does all that, and she comes back with pictures, and it's just her sanctuary. It's her happy place. It's her getaway. And when she can't do that, she really is bummed and disappointed.
It's one of my favorite places as well.
Is it, Burgess?
I go for a big loop walk around there at least once a week, usually 2 or 3 times. I take my dog over there. It's sort of like meditative for me. I love that. Yeah, it's a great time. I have not spent any time on this porch and pool. I think maybe this needs to be a part of your advertising. Yes, the museum is great, but see the porch and pool. So, no, but no, I do. Reynolda House is just it's in the whole area. It's just so special. Yeah, it's a very cool area. I soak it up anytime I get a chance. Ride my bike over there a lot too.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things was for the first time I finally saw the cherry blossoms this spring there, and they were so pretty. It's really cool how it's very different there every season. So what in the fall and sort of holidays do you guys have coming up there?
I'll let Phil talk about our fall exhibition.
The founder of the museum is Barbara Babcock-Millhouse that Brittany mentioned. She started the collection in the 60s. The land had been, a lot of it turned over to Wake Forest College, but the house didn't really yet have a purpose. And they always called it the bungalow, but it's an awfully big bungalow, 30,000 square feet. And the family wanted to preserve it. It had been offered to the Army during World War II. There had been different kind of ideas for how do you keep this, I won't call it an albatross because it's so wonderful, but it's a big responsibility, to find a purpose for it. And Barbara's concept was a museum of art where we could look at all of American history through paintings and sculptures. And when she was buying for that collection, and she hasn't bought everything that's in other people have donated as well, but she's really guided it primarily. She was looking for things that she knew, for centuries to come would be important. Like the works had to be really, really kind of the epitome of the best. But she also was collecting for herself for these almost 60 years now, and really being, I think, much more adventurous and bold in works that she was living with herself. So we've asked her to loan all of those, not all of them, but the majority of her own private collection to view this fall. So she's given us almost everything out of her homes, so we can see this. It's the story of American modernism through the 20th century, with a lot of big names like George O'Keeffe and Edward Hopper and Romeo Bearden, but also some people that at the time were kind of risks for her to buy works by them. And then in the course of time, they've become really major figures. So it's called Founder's Vision. That's kind of a pun on her vision for creating a museum, but also her own eye that she was training and kind of educating through this time. Just opened a couple days ago, and it's open through mid-December.
Any pieces in particular that are your favorites? Either of you?
The Cats is coming to mind. And I'm now forgetting the cat's first name. Alex Katz.
Yeah.
And there's another one, and let me first state, I know very little about art, so when I describe a painting, it goes, I think it's a glass, and there's a decanter in it, and it looks really really neat, but I don't know the artist for that piece, so you might know which one I'm referring to. It
Janet
looks kind of
Fish,
See, thank you, Phil.
Spend a little time on this.
He let you suffer a little bit before he jumped in.
Do you have a favorite one?
I guess I like the surprises. So Barbara purchased work by Christo and Jean-Claude, and they were artists who were famous for site-specific environmental installations. So they wrapped the entire Reichstag in Berlin in fabric, and they wrapped the Pont Neuf in Paris in fabric. And they created the gates in Central Park, where for a time everybody had walked through a series of fabric gates. So part of their work is tweaking the system, and almost invading these iconic places usually with fabric. So in 1972, they created a curtain across an entire valley in Colorado, 60 some odd tons of fabric. You had to sort of drive through a curtain like you were coming on stage through this valley. And again, part of the thing is like this insane idea that the world thinks is impossible, and they make it happen. And Barbara bought a study of Christo, who kind of took the engineering side of things, figuring out how to hang this thing and how the contractors could walk across the wire and make it work. And it did work for 28 hours, and the wind blew it down. That's a surprise. She bought Andre Serrano's photograph, Piss Christ, which ignited one of the phases of culture wars in this nation that Jesse Helms decried on the Senate floor and so forth. That speaks to...
we shouldn't have to see that kind of art in our museums.
Oh, I got chills. Just like we're not showing it because it does still upset people, but it says a lot about her. Like here's a work that was, for the artist, a completely sincere expression of his faith. Like he was actually thinking about the Catholic tradition of showing suffering of the crucifixion. But it just completely infuriates people every time it's shown. So we're not showing the work, but we are telling that story as a a gesture of Barbara trying to figure out what is it that makes art so moving, so powerful, and sometimes so scary.
It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor. And that's Jennifer Johnson of Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit 3magnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Retirement, financial planning, and investments. Securities offered through Private Client Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Private Client Services are not affiliated. Private Client Services is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
Isn't that what art's supposed to do, though? It's supposed to elicit emotion, whether it's positive or negative. And I think we, as a society, not just Americans, but everybody, feel that everything has to be upbeat and happy. And it's like all the getting rid of books, not politically, but just I have friends who are like, I don't want my daughter reading that. Why?
Yeah.
Because it makes women look... But not every book you're not supposed to pull for the main character every time. Sometimes the main character is a bad person, and that's also used to tell a tale or prove a point. And not everything has to be a good thing. Yeah. So if it's something, a piece of art that, and I get why you don't show it, but if it's a piece of art that elicits a negative feeling, that's okay too. We have no right to pure happiness. We have right to the pursuit of happiness. So we don't have to be happy all the time. Get over ourselves.
Well, it also sparks really interesting conversation. I mean, if you can be reasonable about your response to it and not simply be so overwrought with your emotional response, then I think that sparks a discourse between people that can be very beneficial and creative if we move forward and try to understand each other. I mean, if you have somebody like the artist saying, oh, this is where I've come from with it, you don't have to agree with me, but if you at least hear my perspective, I mean, that art is so wonderful at doing that because you don't have to read 17 pages or 1,700 pages, whatever the case may be, to understand somebody's point. You can look at it, form your opinion about it, and now you have something to talk about. And to Tim's point with that, it's very difficult and sometimes disheartening to me to see us become so polarized over whether it's art or expression, to where this knee-jerk response. And I think that's not to get off on this whole other subject, but the concept of taking like social media platforms and everybody huddling up with their like kind. Mm-hmm. I've forgotten who it was I was speaking to about this, but what's a little alarming about the world we're in, and I know this is headed off in another direction, you can edit out if you so choose, but is that it used to be, not that long ago, that if you had an idea, fanatical or not, and there was strong feeling about something, and you wanted to rally support for that idea, you had to go out and pound pavement, pick up phones, meet people, and have conversations to ever see that thing take root. Now, you can go into some dark corner of the internet somewhere and say, see, my idea has validity. There's hundreds of thousands of people that think the way I do. And yeah, but I mean, you don't know these people and you don't know what they think, and they might be in somebody's basement somewhere, but you're giving that validation, and that's dangerous. That's a different kind of world we're living in where that kind of thing concerns me. But anyway, full circle back to this, though, I do love that about presenting art. Now I understand to what Tim said also why you don't with that, but yeah, I feel like we need to be really careful that we don't water down our perspective on things to try and ameliorate way too many people.
We need to realize that we do not have the right to not be offended.
And people walking in the door, we don't know what life experience they bring. And with the tobacco story, people coming in the door, They may have just lost a loved one. They might be a pack-a-day smoker. Their family might have been 5 generations in the industry. We don't know. And the same goes with religious feelings. I was pleased to know that Pope Francis invited the artist, Andre Serrano, into the Sistine Chapel last summer. And he sort of echoed what you said, Tim. It's like art breaks down the apathy, sort of cracks the ice. And for Francis, faith can become rote. And he said, you're actually like the Old Testament prophets in shaking us out of our apathy. And he blessed him. And what meant even more to the artist, he gave him a thumbs up. He walked up to Serrano, who's still living. So
Thumbs up from the Pope.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much better than that.
I kissed that ring, and then I got the thumbs up.
So art is a huge part of Winston, though. I mean, there's murals, there's the exams. So that's one of the things I love about Winston. But what would you guys say that you love about Winston-Salem?
I am a Winston native, and my favorite piece about this city, and it's you've probably heard it, but honestly, is community. I always use the example of when we had a Starbucks at the bottom of the embassy that closed, but we have a million locally owned coffee shops downtown. And this is just the type of city where people really do support their own and really believe in helping each other thrive. We don't tend to tear down a lot of our historic structures. We repurpose a lot. So I think it's a city of just a great size. It's got nice character. We value education with 6 colleges here. So there really is just a whole lot of just good value to me in Winston-Salem, where everybody can kind of find a place and know that your neighbors are going to, lift up whatever it is you want to do or be. So I think it's pretty cool.
Love that answer.
Yeah. What about you?
I want to etch that in stone. All that. Yeah, and for the arts, the variety. I mean, decorative and fine and performing. It's. I haven't lived in tons of places, but a fair number. And yeah, for scale and then for ease of accessing all of those things, it's pretty special.
How long have you been in Winston?
So I'm not a native, but 30 years thereabouts, so almost honorary.
Yeah, pretty much.
Where was home originally?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Some Amish country there.
Center of Amish country, yeah. So that in terms of building things well, that was. I think my love of architecture probably came out of that. Staying at an honoring distance from them, but
Right, yeah.
yeah, pretty great place to grow up.
So what's something you would love to see in Winston's future?
I think Winston-Salem State has an amazing public art program, but I don't know that the city has embraced that yet. I think it's a sort of sign of a city that's willing to risk confronting its history. I mean, public art. It's like I don't want to just talk about controversy today, but
It sells.
Art does that, though, also,
it does. So I sort of hope Winston soon arrives at that place where it can begin to let artists come in and get to know the history and push at assumptions about the past a little bit through public art. And then you get kind of these symbols of the city, like you were saying, you don't have to read a whole book about it. It's like right there, boom, it becomes recognizable, it becomes something else to share. But we can share it, but it can also push a little bit,
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, anything that gets people talking, I love that.
Yeah.
Challenging notions. I was speaking with my grandmother. This is forever ago. She's long since deceased, but it was just post-college for me, and I was sort of challenging a lot of assumptions or thoughts and theories I'd had about things. And I was living in LA, and I'd been there for a number of years, and I came back and was talking to her about some of the things that were maybe a little concerning to me about some of Winston-Salem's history and so forth. And it wasn't like I was, banging a drum about it. I just was voicing that. And she said, I understand that. I understand your perspective. But you also need to understand that the things that did take root at that same time are the reason that the city is here. And it would not be here if it weren't for those things. And if you're going to look at every historical whatever it might be, event or city, etc., through the lens of the things that were wrong at the time, then no one is above reproach, because every country, every city, every whatever is filled with its good and its bad. So I'm not telling you that you shouldn't concern yourself with those things, but you also need to consider both sides. And that was very awakening for me. And I was a kid. I was 24 or 5 or whatever, but it was a really, really lovely perspective from her, and it helped me to focus on the things that, she was talking about tobacco in particular and that kind of thing. And she said, yeah, this city wouldn't be here without it.
So you could continue talking. She didn't shut you down. You didn't shut her down.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick break from this show to do 2 things. 1, we'll say thank you for listening and supporting the Triad Podcast Network. Just listening to this episode is appreciated. 2nd, I want to ask that you support a local business that supports us as a presenting partner, a real estate company we trust, the Ginther Group, located in Winston-Salem. The housing market is moving fast. You need someone you can rely on to assess your situation, read the data and trends, and steer you in the right direction. Interest rates, inventory, new construction, there are so many factors that impact our local market. Don't buy into the national internet headlines. Get the information from the folks right here in our neighborhood. Contact Blake Ginther and the Ginther Group today. Whether you're buying or selling, have cash or not, or if your home isn't in the ideal condition for selling, chances are they have a solution for you. Call 336-283-8689 or visit theginthergroup.com. Buying, selling, investing, or just learning, whatever you need. Start now, and like me, you can become a Ginther Group client for life.
Life is full of celebrations, birthdays, holidays, life milestones, and so much more. And who has been helping generations of families celebrate these events? Our friends at Dewey's Bakery. And even if you aren't planning for something in the near future, you don't have to wait to enjoy something savory and delicious from Dewey's. Maybe you just need something to get you through your Mondays. Drop by every Monday for a free Cake Square Day. No purchase necessary. Just come celebrate the start of a new week. So, if you're hearing this ad on a Monday and you're in your car, reset that GPS and get to one of their 3 Triad locations immediately in Winston-Salem at Thruway and Reynolda Manor, plus one in Greensboro at Friendly Shopping Center. And any day of the week, you can find the perfect item with fast and easy ordering options at local.deweys.com. Plus, Dewey's does so much to help celebrate our community. To date, they've given back over $4 million to local schools, churches, and other nonprofits. Your next celebration isn't complete without something special from Dewey's Bakery. Dewey's. Celebrate every day.
You say that we share the beauty and complexity of the American story at Reynolda, and we talk about it in a way where they coexist and complement one another. They're not just 2 opposing things. And so, to your point, I think in every story, there's something that's beautiful about it, and there's something that's complex or a little difficult. When we reference, how COVID impacted Reynolda, it was a terrible thing, right? This pandemic that we all had to live through. But in that time, everyone was encouraged to go outside, and so Reynolda became this hub for outdoor enjoyment, and we saw our audience begin to diversify. The people that you saw walking the grounds at Reynolda became younger, or their backgrounds, you could visibly see the difference in who was enjoying the grounds, and so that is maintained since then. And so newer audiences, those who have lived in the city for, years and years, are now familiar with Reynolda, even though it's been there. They just may have felt it wasn't a place for them, or that side of town might not be, where they're most welcome. And so when we were just all sort of forced to go outdoors to, be with one another, Reynolda became a safe place for a lot of different people who hadn't enjoyed it before. So there's always the both and.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So are there any fun ghost stories associated with it?
I closed the museum many nights for many years. I never had any experiences. There was somebody who worked on the grounds who had 2 ghost stories that were pretty good. One is a woman in white who would ask him what he was planting without her mouth moving. he told me these stories, and then he would say, "But remember, I was twice struck by lightning." So,
I thought you were going to say he was drunk at the time.
So, fun fact, my dad was struck by lightning 3 times.
That's I never heard of that.
Yes, 3 times.
How is this possible?
And he's still here. Knocked him off of a ladder. One of them. He was, because he can't stop cleaning gutters, right? Oh, it's going to rain. It's going to storm. It's going to lightning. Let me get on this ladder. Dad, that's great.
And
Find the highest peak possible and plumb some metal to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
3 times.
But, no. Catherine Reynolds liked Halloween, though. She had costume parties, and she would electrify the handrails. This is the house downtown, not Reynolda, but the house that preceded it, where the library is. And I guess they were metal handrails because she was able to shock her friends. And then she had corpses. They filled clothes with sand and piled them up in the basement or different rooms so that you'd walk in and find. So it really went kind of all out for Halloween. Edgar Allan Poe is her favorite writer, so that might be.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And the organ, we play the organ around Halloween, which of course is the ultimate spooky instrument.
I didn't realize there was an organ in the house.
Yes, it's these levels. It's on 3 levels, and they said that if you went up Fifth Avenue, like in the first decade of the 20th century, you could hear Pulitzer's organ, Woolworth's, Frick, like pouring out of the houses. They were really into these gigantic, complicated instruments. And the one at Reynolda, it's 2,500 pipes that are distributed like behind walls and above grills and stuff. And it basically is still the same instrument. Like we haven't changed it too significantly.
So the day that I came and I talked with you about a project we were going to do that did not happen, but we were going to talk about it. As you were walking me out, they were, I guess, testing it or whatever because it was happening. And you're like, oh, they're playing the organ. And I'm like, that's awesome.
It really fills the whole place.
It does. It does. You are encaptured by the sound for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So every afternoon at 2:45 it plays for just a song or two, and it'll be like Cole Porter or Gershwin or Scott Joplin or classical for a piece.
We'll kind of touch on Catherine's love of Halloween. This fall, we're doing a Reynolda on the House event, October 27th. So it's where the museum opens up free to anyone for the afternoon. It's called Organ Spooktacular. So there will be all sorts of little haunting songs played on the organ that day.
Nice.
So where can people go to find out more about Reynolda House and Gardens?
Our website is the best way of doing that, just reynolda.org. You can follow us on social media at Curate Reynolda, and for the gardens, Reynolda Gardens WFU.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And sharing your fun stories. This is Twin City Talk. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and www.twincitytalk.com.
See you there.
The views and opinions portrayed by guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the distributors and hosting companies. And if you love this podcast, that's great, but don't think about stealing it. Reach out to us and talk about the content because it is copyrighted.